Morning campers, hope you're okay. Welcome to the Troubled Kids live stream number 3, no less. So here we are on a very, very sunny Wednesday morning in Bridgend. It's a beautiful day, sunshine, light breeze. We're here in Boxroom Studios, so called because I can touch the door that way and the window that way, so even if we could get a cat in here, there'd be no room whatsoever to swing it. So we're in the Troubled Kids group. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, if you want to watch it live, then find the Troubled Kids group in Facebook, ask to join, and I'll click you through. It's a private group because it's for people who are interested in serving troubled kids, helping them to recover. We share resources and training and ideas, help each other think things through and consider particular problems and so on. Anyway, but today we've got a great show today. So we had a shed load of people in last week again, which was lovely. Loads of people rewatching on YouTube. We're over 400 people rewatching on YouTube now. The first one that we did, we've had 662 people join the group in the last sort of 2 weeks or so, which is amazing. So we're kind of, I think we're over 1,100 members now. But we're not chasing quantity here. This is about quality. It's about helping each other out and working for the good of the children. So hopefully that's what we'll do. So there's tons of expertise in this group. Really looking forward to today. We've had some fantastic questions. You guys are really thinking things through and sharing your ideas and your concerns. So it's been really quite. I've struggled to kind of know what to keep in and what to leave out. So if you did posit a question, thank you, bless you, appreciate that. I'm really glad to offer what help I can on here, but in the hope that other people in the group will be able to help and support too, and lend their wisdom to it. So forgive me if I don't get to your question. I have some that I've bumped off to next week because I'm kind of at least one live stream in advance in my planning. So so there will be more that we'll cover next week. So sorry if I don't get to it today. Anyway, welcome on board. It's good to have you. Pam is here. Hi Pam. Hi Sarah. Hi Matthew. Melanie. Now, I don't know if that's Shan or Cyan. I'm sorry if I spelled that wrong. Jackie is in. Lovely to have you guys. Pop something in the comments. Let me know you're here. If you've got any questions as we go through, please pop them in the comments. I will try and have a flick through a couple of points during the show so that we can do justice to you guys being there and watching. Hi Rachel, hi Deborah. Right, we're in, we're rocking and rolling. So let's have a theme tune. Cheers me up every time that. So first of all, I just wanted to have a look at some of the posts from this week. Now, I've just realised because I'm streaming in Facebook, I can't actually go to the page and look at the posts, but there's a couple that I really wanted to mention. One was from Andrea Stimson. Congratulations, Andrea, by the way. Andrea won the Blue Book giveaway last week, and amazingly enough works at a school probably a mile from here, so it saved me postage, which was great. Seeing as I have no income at the moment, being on lockdown, I can't be out there training people with Trish and Dusty and all that we normally do, the TRM training. So I was glad to save on a stamp, so thank you, Andrea. Just to say, I should say also, today I'm going to be, later on at the end, I'm going to be giving away my Harry the Hound book. I ordered this when my mate Neil, who was one of the authors along with Wendy, and and Kyle, he tipped me off. So we reviewed that last week, and there's a blog post on my website if you want to read that. But I'm going to give away my copy of that at the end of the show. So if you fancy that, please stay on. Morning, Cheryl. And we'll do the same again towards the end of the show. I'll ask you if you want it. Put me in the comments later. Don't do it now. And then they'll all be together, and I could just flick through and choose somebody, and I'll get that in the post to you. So in terms of post this week, Andrea, who won the Blue Book, let me just share my screen with you. This is it's a professional development course, really. I think it's aimed at teachers. It's on the Creative Education kind of e-learning website, but it's about supporting young people to break the cycle of self-harm. It's really good, and it's free. You'll notice here it's free for a week until the 24th of May, so there may be some good material in there, looking beyond their injuries, what needs being met by it, and all that kind of stuff. Classic self-harm response stuff. But the course has been developed by Pookie Knightsmith, who is excellent, so I recommend you have a look at that. So thanks, Andrea, for sharing that. Martin Hatton, who is one of my long-term prolific posters on here, posts a lot in ACES Scotland Facebook page as well. He put on this little film, and it's really about, I think in his post, Martin mentioned it around domestic violence. It's less about that. It's more about coercion, really. Young people who might be suffering coercion online and through their phones and social media and so on. So that's really good. It's only a minute long, but it's basically good for young people, alerting them to how they can be put under pressure online. So again, well worth a watch. So thank you guys for chipping in on that. I know Nikki put a question in the group relating to a situation that she's dealing with. Nikki, if you're in, I haven't had time to address it on here or back channel with you, but I think if you could share some information that's not going to identify the child but will help people to speak in, maybe pick a particular issue or behaviour, pop that in the group and people will chip in. Those of you who've been around for a while will have heard me say this before, but I'm really keen for this group not just to be me putting stuff on there, but for you guys. So that's particularly thanks to Martin and Andrea for posting. I know Harry Coleman posts a lot, Pam's posted, and other people. So please keep doing that, because it's about helping each other, really. Excuse me. So I just wanted to say a number of you have put thank you messages on the group saying thanks for having me, thanks for clicking me in and approving me. You're more than welcome. It's great to have you here. Just to say that I'll leave those up for a day or so, and then I tend to take them down just to declutter the group so that the stuff that is there to help and support people is prominent. But thank you for your messages. Don't want to stop that at all. But I'll take them down after a day, so just to clear things up. So please get involved. Ask your questions. Don't just look at the group. Post on the group. We've got literally hundreds of people now who have joined the group in the last couple of weeks. I mean, 700 people or more in the last couple of weeks. So I'm really keen for you guys to get stuck in and post stuff that's interesting as well. So who have we got? Oh yeah, it's lovely. Hi, okay. Hi Sabrina. Hi Steve. Hi Yasmin. Charisse, Tammy. Hello again. Hi Derek. Good to have you, man. Oh, the book's arrived. Great. Coming in on the internet and in the front door. You can't get rid of me, mate. Tell you what, like a bad penny. Sophie, hi. Jane Williams, hi. Pam, Maya, Bernie. Great to have you guys on. Thank you for being here. It's so nice to be useful rather than just stuck in my bedroom trying to write stuff in the hope that it helps. So there we go. Okay. So as ever, just to say, we're going to get to some questions. Keen to speak to those. But as ever, just to say, please don't post kids' names in questions or any kind of obvious identifying information if you're doing that, or in the group. Obviously, this is my opinion. That's all it is. I really hope it'll be helpful. I trust it will be helpful. but it obviously, they're pointers only, really. It doesn't do the job of a proper consultation or intervention. So please get professional help if you need to. This doesn't replace that, but hopefully it'll help you as well. Great. So we've got quite a few questions, so forgive me if I'm speaking quick. You might feel a bit like I'm kind of machine gunning you for the next few minutes or so, but I'm just going to press on in the hope that it'll help. So this is the third of Matt's questions. Hi, Matt in Swanwick Lodge, down on the south coast, their secure children's home. Matt asked 3 questions the first week, so I've kind of spread them out. So this one really is about how to keep consistency as a team when you're working with children with individual needs. This is a really good question. And actually, Derek Kearney, hi mate, I know you're on. Derek posted, I think, during the group last week, he said the social worker just phoned and we discussed the way of working that we'd been discussing on the theme, using the model and whatnot. And he said, Derek said, you go from practical to theory. In other words, you look at the problems and the kids, and then you get the theory to fix the problem, where a lot of practitioners go the other way. So, and I think that's absolutely right. And I guess, Matt, this is the key to your question. And this is a question that will face people in teams everywhere, really. And also for foster carers. You know, foster carers have got 2, sometimes 3 very different kids with very different needs that they're caring for. Kinship carers may be dealing with sibling groups, and residential homes will have different kids and all the rest of it. So we know what that diversity is like. So I guess how do you work consistently as a team with kids with individual needs? I think the answer to this, or at least my view of this, is that we make the mistake of thinking consistency is about approaching every child and doing the same thing with every child and just trying to tweak the way we do it to meet their needs. And I think that's a mistake. I think we need to zoom out a little bit more. What we need is a kind of, I don't know whether to say underlying or overarching, but you get the idea. Either a kind of, we need a singular approach, theoretical approach, picking up on Derek's point, that we apply to every child, acknowledging that the way we do that is going to be very different because kids have got very different needs. So I'm going to take you back to the TRM again here. Let me just find that. Here we go, and share my screen with you. Now again, and please, I know I keep putting this up, but it's because it's the way I see the world, and I think it can really help folk. But you see, this model is not just a generalized kind of theory that you can pick and choose bits from. It's got 2 great strengths, I think. One is it can be applied to individual children, but it can also be applied to organizations, teams. It can inform the ethos of a residential home, for example, or a service or a project. And I think the beauty of it, and some of the consultation work we've been doing with youth offending teams and childcare teams, residential homes, secure units and so on, is to have a model that all of your colleagues know, accept as the agreed approach, and then can apply to individual children. And I guess what this means really is that you see, I know how it breaks down, and I found this working in residential as well, that and in secure, that you can have 2 children. Say you may have 10, but let's say you've got 2 children. They've got very different needs, but we have a set of rules for the way we are in this place, in this agency, in this team, or whatever, in this foster home. The problem is, if you take common rules like that, apply the same rules to every child without taking their needs into account, then clearly that's a disaster. So what we need is an agreed approach call that rules if you want, but an agreed approach that the staff accept is the way we do things, and then apply that approach to each child. And one of the key things with this is that the kids know what your approach is. So it's not just they know they've got a care plan, or they know they've got an intervention plan, or a risk management plan, a child protection plan, or a yacht supervision plan, whatever it might be, referral order plan. Those are in some ways the details. Kids need to know how this place works, how this staff team works, so that they can have a sense of why it might be different. See, there's two problems with inconsistencies. One is teams start blaming each other for not working the same way, and kids start thinking we're being unfair because they're getting differential treatment. Whereas in actual fact, no, neither of those things is true. The problem is we don't have a common approach that both staff and kids know about. You need a reference point for everybody. So we recommend, for example, when we go in and we consult on the trauma recovery model, we recommend that you put this everywhere. You buy the posters. We usually give people posters if we're out doing the work, and you get them stuck on the wall. We've had kids making Christmas trees out of this. We had a fostering support agency that actually made a big cardboard Christmas tree, and instead of it being a pyramid like this, they made a Christmas tree with each of the layers and had the kids paint on the layers, and they can use that as an object lesson in interventions and when they're talking about kids, but it's there in the lounge. TRM Christmas tree. How bizarre is that? But the beauty of that is the kids know what they're dealing with. So I think when you get questions about consistency, you can come back to a model or a reference point rather than a child or an individual staff member. Because if we're all constantly reappraising what we do in the light of an agreed approach, it gives us that consistency. Also, just to say, I haven't developed this yet. Let me share this with you. This is the sonar that we mentioned the other week, and it's well, you can see what it stands for: snapshot of needs and responses. And I think really this meets the need for the bit that sits under the big model. So you have a model like the TRM or whatever model you use, attachment parenting, signs of safety, whatever. But like a TRM, then underneath that, you break that down into what each child needs. And the sonar is a way of helping you to do that. That is, I've got further on with that than I thought, actually. It's in draft form, as you can see, and I will share that with you guys in a few weeks. I'm finishing the self-care course, and then I'm going to get straight on and make this a product people can get on the website and so on. So you have your overall approach, then you have your specific breakdown for particular kids. So I hope that's helpful. And what it gives you is a reference point that is not a child and not a staff member or a team. So you deal with the friction around that. And you have a reference point which is about child development, trauma sensitivity, common approach. And as Derek rightly says, it's absolutely grounded in theory. Theory is our friend, absolutely, and it's a good reference point. It takes the blame out of it. So who have we got on? We got Tracy, we got Yvonne, we got Nicola, Susan, Sean. Hi all. Great to have you on. Okay, so thanks for the question, Matt. Keep them coming, mate. If there's things we can help you with, let us know. I know you guys got tons of experience down there as well. So if you're asking stuff, you can absolutely be sure it'll help others. So thanks for that. My best to the team in Swanwick. Kerry asked a question about the TRM while we're on it. Thanks for your question, Kerry. She said, will this model be relevant for kids who haven't experienced obvious trauma, whose behaviour has changed through COVID? Absolutely. Let's have it on again, just see it. Yeah, absolutely. So just to say about the TRM, the stuff that's in the middle here, in the coloured pyramid, the triangle bit, those are the things that particularly relate to children with issues related to, adversity and maltreatment, and abuse and trauma and so And they're actually quite tailored also to teenagers, because that's who we were working with when we developed it. But we've tried to make it a little bit more general. But so just to say, it's really the bit inside the triangle that is trauma specific. But the model itself overall is also a kind of roadmap of child development. And I think, as we said last week, if you look at all the models of kind of human development, whether it's Freud or Erikson or Kohlberg, Abraham Maslow, whoever it might be, they're all layered and progressive, and they're all milestone orientated. You kind of get through this phase, or begin to get through this phase, before you move on to the next one. And the TRM is no different to that, Kerry. And so if you guys are dealing with people who are not necessarily dealt with trauma, and COVID is a classic, then this can help you in terms of the general order. So the stuff down at the bottom here is very much about safety and stability, and that's the way that we deal with infants, because they're entirely dependent. They rely on routine and their caregivers and so on. That's where they build attachments. That attachment feeds into the relationship phase, helping to build trust. This becomes increasingly reciprocal as time goes on, and the children test out their own contributions from the feedback they get from people. As they get older, they begin to interact with the world. They'll have hiccups and difficulties. They'll face crises, and they'll need to learn to handle those. They'll develop as they move through childhood into adolescence and pre-adolescence. Their cognitive facilities come very much on stream, and they gain that greater insight and awareness, and on it goes. So you get the idea. So they're not traumagenic things that are happening, but they are developmental. And what we've done in the model is just to try and help how those developmental phases can be impacted, and what it looks like where trauma and adversity and abuse and so on is a part of the deal. So I hope that's helpful, Kerry. Thank you for the question. I often forget that's a really an important sort of part of understanding the TRM, particularly. As I've said before, we actually weren't probably going to call it the TRM, but the cat was already out of the bag and it became that. So that's fine, because it's not just about trauma, it's about development in general. So thank you for that, Kerry. Couple of questions now. Lynn posed a question. Pam and Sarah, all sort of similar, and they feed into that idea that, Kerry, I haven't forgotten your COVID related bit, Kerry. So I'm just, excuse me, having a quick drink. So quick question from Lynn about return to school and education post-lockdown. With a young person challenging behaviour, returning to school part-time this week. He's a vulnerable young person looked after. He's been kept home. He could have been attending, but they've kept him home, stabilised him and so on. And Lynn says, we're all really struggling now. It's been a long time. It took 18 months to transition this young person into the educational placement and into the unit building, sorry. So we're currently mindful that this gap in lockdown will have set us back. He's going in 2 mornings a week. We've already seen regressed behaviour and old trauma triggers surfacing. We're concerned re-social distancing because we know he's not going to do it. It's a very small group, so that's a bonus. And she raised it because she thinks that'll be a helpful question for others. Thank you for that, Lynn. Pam, I'm going to read a couple here because they relate to each other. My child is now living her best life, no social anxiety whatsoever. I've seen that quite a lot. A few people have said that lockdown's actually been a real benefit for some groups, some kids. No social anxiety whatsoever. How can I force her back to school? This was a question from a parent recently. Same goes for farmers' children who've been at home helping on the farm. They don't really see the need to go back to school. How do you make teenagers without mishandling them and manhandling them? How do you get them to get back in a car to go to school? I'm afraid of exacerbating the anxiety or being the brunt of all the anger and problems that'll throw up. And Sarah, thank you, Pam. And Sarah raised the idea of being a rise in domestic violence and real problems in the home around that during lockdown. I mean, absolutely, man alive. I mean, I feel your pain, folks. I really do. I mean, I haven't got I haven't got children living here during lockdown. Mine are grown up anyway. My daughter, who's a teenager, is with her mum. So I can only imagine how tricky that has been. So let's get into it a bit. The issue for me is, I think, that there's kind of two sides to this. There's the being in lockdown and the getting out of lockdown bit. So some kids who will have thrived or done okay in lockdown, and then there will be kids who really struggled with it, or who been okay with it, but they'll struggle going back. So I think kids who've thrived in lockdown or done okay in lockdown, we need to really be thinking about how we can calm them. If it's excitable stuff, they're itching to get back. We need to calm that, I think. And as I think it was Lynn who rightly was saying about, we know this kid's not going to conform to social distancing. I think there is a real job of work, almost kind of simple psycho-ed job really in the home or the resi unit or wherever you are, to help kids understand social distancing, why it's important, and without freaking them out about the potential health consequences, we need to make it clear that this is really important. That getting too close can be an issue, and just, I suppose, raise awareness for kids about what the rules of engagement are, and and how they might conduct themselves when they get back into the fray. I think routine is going to be really important. It's always important, isn't it? And I know a number of you have raised about regressed behaviour. And again, the younger the child, the more dependent and routine-based their lives are. The more dependent on other people, and the more routine and structure is important. So if you're seeing regression, we need to regress in parallel, really, and make sure that we embed routine and structure and stability, and understand they're going to need more of us. They're going to need a bigger slice of our cake than we would have been giving them before. We can't just kind of palm them off, leave them to work independently, let them get on with their own thing, or assume they're okay when they're not with us. We need to be absolutely on that. It's exhausting, but it's really important. You wouldn't leave a year-old child for 2 or 3 hours on their own. So even if you have an older teenager or a young adult who's really struggling and you're seeing regressed behaviours and trauma triggers come to the fore, we need to think about 18-month-old child or 3-year-old child or 7-year-old child. We need to ask that key question. For this behaviour to be normal, this regressed behaviour, this traumatogenic behaviour, for this behaviour to be normal, how old would this child be? And what you normally find is they're really little. And then the next key question is, in order to comfort, help and guide this child, how do I need to behave if developmentally they're operating at 3 or 4 or whatever? So I think that's really important, and that works whether kids are struggling or whether they're excitable about lockdown. For kids who struggled with it or are going to struggle with going back, it's hard. It's going to be hard for them. I think it's so key to understand that why lockdown has gone well. Lockdown has gone well for some kids because they need more stability. They need more structure. They need more attention. They need fewer people. They need more time to talk. They need more quiet time just to be with others who they live with. And what's beautiful about it for me is that it's given us a massive body of experience by which to go out of lockdown and reappraise what we do in schools, in work settings, in resi units, in foster homes and so on, because there are some real lessons to learn from lockdown. I want to come on to that at the end of this little section. But don't underestimate the power of routine. For me, for kids who've struggled, where we're getting regression, we just need to be focused on them, really gentle, tailoring our care to a much younger child who's much more sensitive, probably fewer words, more hugs, or more nurturing, more looking after, little acts of kindness. Hugs may not be safer, caring approach in your particular setting. But I think we need a really good reason not to give kids hugs, actually, particularly if we do that in a safer, caring way with other staff around. Bedroom doors are not places we go through on our own and all that kind of stuff. But that physicality can be very reassuring. It's exactly what we do with little kids. Before we've even started to figure out the problem, we scoop and soothe. And for older kids who are really struggling and a bit dysregulated, we need to ask ourselves, how can I scoop and soothe this child safely for me and safely for them in a way that's sensitive and recognises their needs and stuff. So I think also it's about gentleness and slowly. We don't feel just because lockdown happened overnight, the end of lockdown needs to happen overnight. I love the fact that I think, Pam, you were saying your lad goes in a couple of days a week, couple of mornings a week or something. That's just brilliant. We need more of that. I think we also need to take some of Harry's advice, and think about doing lots of rehearsal, even if it's just mentioning it now and again, even if it's subtle clues that back to school is going to happen. Things like getting the uniform out, giving it a wash, and just hanging it up to dry somewhere where the kid can see it, or hanging it up somewhere where it's visible. Maybe not talking about it, maybe not making a big deal about it, maybe put it out with other washing, but make sure it's seen. The kids clock it. You can see how they respond to that. They may talk about it. You may want to allude to it and make a comment and just see if children will respond to that, and that will give you a hook to see whether that conversation can be followed through, and think about the bag or that they take to school and their pencil case and things like that. May decide, for example, to buy new as part of your conversation. Wouldn't it be nice to have a new bag for school? Now, I know we're in May and school kicks out in about 6 or 7 weeks' time. Probably a bit less than that now. But for a few quid for a bag and a new pencil case, if that's something that will help the child get ready, because they'll play with that and they'll get it organised and they'll enjoy having something new, and maybe that's a way of just raising awareness. And again, back to Harry's stuff about take a drive past the school. If you've got reason to go out for a shop or something, or go specially and just drive past, maybe park outside and have a look, or maybe just drive past and have a conversation. How are you feeling about school? Wow, it's a while since we've been here, isn't it? Something nice, slightly removed, not going for the jugular. You'll be back tomorrow, get a grip. I mean, I know none of you would do that, but we feel like doing that sometimes. At least I do. I think being gentle, raising awareness, allowing visual cues, conversational cues to put kids in the ballpark of returning to school, and then have very open discussions about it. If a child expresses angrily about it or withdraws, go with that. Gently, obviously, empathically, but go with it. Tease it out. Do you want to talk about that now? Sounds like we talked about school and you've gone a bit sad. What's going on? Are you okay? Do you want to chat about that? Makes me feel a bit sad. You're going back to school. And so there's something about being open, about being responsive to how kids behave and what they say and the moods that they express. There's also something really important, I think, about validating what kids say and do and feel, and saying, do you know what? Yeah, I don't blame you for being nervous. Crumbs. I'd be nervous if I had to go back after school. I'm a bit nervous about going back to work, or it feels a bit odd having to think that we won't be here all day together, and I think I'm going to miss you, or whatever you feel will help this child to give voice to what they may struggle to give voice to, but also to own the feelings yourself and say, yeah, I'm struggling a bit with that, because it validates the child. It makes it not a lonely experience for them. It also means they're with someone who may also be experiencing the same thing. I think there's real value in that for kids. And I think back to the point earlier about the gradual reintroduction, I think we may need to not do what educationalists educationalists pretty well know their stuff. It's more politicians, maybe local authority officials, people who don't deal with children directly, in my experience, is maybe not do what they tell us to do all the time. If you have a child who's very distressed about going into school, or they're going to school and they come back and they're freaking out, they're really upset about it, or ultra hyper excited and they're losing the plot and, running around like the dog chasing its tail or whatever, you get a degree of agitation or distress related to the return to school. And probably what that tells us is we need to do all that open talking, discussion, empathy, kindness, gentle, rehearsed approaches to things, being very practical. But we also need maybe to say maybe the pace of the reintroduction needs to change to fit the child. And I think this is really key. If you've got a child who's gone into school for a morning or a day and they are really struggling with it, we need, as the people who know these kids, to maybe say, do you know what? How about you don't go in tomorrow? Maybe, let's say it's Monday and Monday's been a problem for whatever reason. Maybe we say, okay, let's not go into school tomorrow because it's been quite a day and we're all a bit. It's been a tricky day for everybody. Why don't we do a bit more lockdown tomorrow and then go back in on Wednesday and just do it slowly, because that's how it goes, isn't it? When you're learning something new, you can't do it all at once sometimes. And pacing things for kids, we're maybe going to need to do that. And I think it's important for those of us who know children, particularly if you're a carer, foster carer, kinship carer, resi worker, you're working in secure or prison, and you've got kids in a structured environment where you are calling the shots. What we need to do is facilitate the kids to call the shots by us being responsive to their behaviour. And you don't need me to say I'm not saying kids can rule the roost, clearly not. But we need to rule the roost in a way that helps them to be at peace and at ease. So let's really do that. I'm just going to pop over because there's a couple of comments I want to get to here. Jackie says children will struggle to go back to school. Speak to the school to see if someone's school and teacher would pop round to the home and engage with the child. Or maybe they could, absolutely, Jackie, or maybe they could pop on a Zoom call, or just even swap texts or something like that, so they can understand what will happen. I think there's going to be, absolutely right, Jack, I think there's a real job of work for schools, educational establishments, because it might be, I'm just aware, there may not be schools in the mainstream sense, there may be SEND units, there may be pupil referral units, there may be kids in home education, whatever it might be. But maybe there's an interactional piece that can happen before the child returns to help them get used to it. Absolutely. Completely. Derek, I've got 3 foster kids, 4, 6 and 13. They've absolutely thrived during lockdown. Is there anything you need to watch for around the corner? I think if they've thrived on it, Derek, it's what we said before, and what I'm sure you know is that they've thrived for reasons. They're at home, it's predictable, they're with safe people, they know what's going to happen, they lack the normal peer-related social pressure, they're not being exposed to and expected to learn new material, there's no performance criteria, upcoming exams, taking tests, knowing which set you're in the class, the whole pecking order thing is gone. So I think if we look and examine all of those bits, there are really key bits and pieces we can take away to say, okay, we need to make sure that we replicate, with bells and whistles on, lockdown when they come home from school, to hold them, because they're going to be that little bit more tender and fragile. Harry saying the importance of physical contact during this stage is huge. Absolutely. There has to be safety in mind, but for some it's the difference between managing and not. Absolutely. And I know Harry's working with care leavers, so her kids are at least 16 years old. And if she's saying, well, I've got 16, 17, 18-year-old care leavers, some of whom are from, and many of whom I know are from different cultures, they're asylum seekers, where touch isn't culturally the norm. So the sensitivity there, and I know Harry knows that, but it's just, it really illustrates the point. If you've got young adults who are really benefiting from safe touch, then how much more children? Absolutely right. Cheryl saying it may help to talk about what they will do when they come home from school. Yes, make that predictable completely, so they know there's a plan in place. Watch a film, absolutely, and do that in the morning. I think that can really, yes, you're right, help them to, it grounds them and they can focus on something to look forward to. Totally. I couldn't agree more, Cheryl. Brilliant. So saying in the morning, do you know what? When you get home, what we'll do is we'll make some really couple of big mugs of hot chocolate with some little marshmallows in. We'll cut you up in a blanket and we'll have a chat about the day. So and we'll have, it'll be no rules. You can tell me anything. You can use any words you want or whatever. Or when you come in, we're just going to sit and watch a film. Or let's go for a walk with the dog and just get some fresh air and let the trickiness of the day blow away, and all of that. Absolutely brilliant. Great, guys. You guys should be on here, really. I need to find a way of getting your comments broadcast live, because there's such wisdom in the group. That's great. So again, just a quick word to schools or educationalists. I know you know this, guys, but I just want to back you up, really. Kids are going to need loads and loads and loads of time during the school day to discuss, share their feelings, and to feel okay not feeling okay. Some of that stuff is going to come out in behaviour, so I think we need to preempt that and plan for fora where kids can chat. There may be older kids, but let's do a diary of lockdown. Let's do let's have a quick group discussion or small group discussion. Best and worst thing about lockdown. How many out of 10 was lockdown really hard for you? How many out of 10 was lockdown brilliant, you wish it never ended? How many out of 10 was it great to be at home? How many out of 10 is it great or not great to be back at school? Just anything that will tease out conversations. Throw a cushion across. Right, it's your turn to say, how are you feeling? One word, how you're feeling about lockdown. Throw the cushion at somebody else. One word about how you're feeling about being back in school. But anything that will ease the flow, give kids opportunity to chat. We're going to need to do that in the school context. There's going to be need for lots of time in the school setting for kids to run and play. They're going to need unstructured time and as outside time in the school grounds as possible. If it were me and I was planning a school day, I'd probably start with more breaks or longer breaks. And as soon as kids are out, you can need to be out there with them. My advice for educationalists will be, have a plan, of course, for what you're going to do, but keep as much of what you're going to do discussive, movement orientated. Make it practical about using your hands, making stuff, doing stuff. Make it collaborative. Have kids cooperating, doing tasks. Because the more movement orientated, do grounding exercises in the class. Get some music in there. Get kids clapping. Do some simple tapping or drumming on the desks. Any of that bilateral, rhythmic orientated stuff will ground kids. Do breathing. Introduce mindfulness as a way of dealing with things, particularly at the beginning and end of discussion times or activity times. That can be really helpful. So think about that. Just a couple of things I want to say really clearly. Woe betide the school that tries to run a tight, strict ship around learning. Clearly, there needs to be structure and routine. But if we get into finger waggy, get down and do your work stuff, well, you put your tin hat on, because it's not going to be easy. You might even struggle with that yourself. And I know you guys know that, but I think more power to you. If you're having to deal with people higher up the food chain than you, who are trying to be strict and rigid about learning and making up catching up for making up for lost time towards exams, forget it. It's not going to help. It's not going to serve kids. It's not going to serve you. I had a lovely conversation with a clinical psychologist who works in a school down in the West Country. Helen, you'll know if you are if you're on or you see this later. So this is a small school. It's a private school, but it takes kids who are referred in by social services with special needs and complex morbidity issues and things. So it's private and small, 3 different sites, I think 9 classes, only about 45 kids. So small groups of kids, 4, 5, 6 kids. They've been back about a fortnight or 3 weeks already because they've got the small groups and they can do it logistically. But what Helen was saying was that it's been really very interesting that because the education staff have taken a much more hands-off and responsive approach to the children, less teaching structure and more communication, empathy, flexibility, gentleness, and so on, they've found a couple of really major advantages. One is children have been very willing and open to say how they're feeling and discuss that, which would be brilliant. The other thing is that they've also taken greater ownership of the learning experience. So where teachers have been saying, listen, this is the kind of thing we're thinking about, talking about, we're learning today. How do you think we could do this? And I don't know the technicalities of how they've done it. But what they've said is kids have been offering suggestions, and when the teachers have gone with those and they've collaborated on it, they've found real joy in that. And she said, we've learned things from kids coming out of lockdown which we are going to adopt permanently in the educational ethos of the school because it's better. So I think this is not all about challenge. There is joy in this and learning in this. Fab. Time's going on. So I have another question that I'm going to pinch for next week about secondary trauma. Somebody said I can really relate to the story of an adoptive mum suffering secondary trauma. And I also had something from a foster carer saying I told our supervising social worker a year ago that I felt I was suffering from secondary trauma, and they didn't listen, and so on. So I want to come on to that next week, and I'm going to next week focus a little bit on that. So if you've got questions and thoughts about anything, of course, as always, but if you've got anything specific to the impact of the work, and self-care, burnout, how hard it is and all that stuff, please let me have that, because that's where I'm going next week. So thank you. I think it was Lynn maybe who offered the question about secondary trauma. It's a great question. I've got a gazillion things I want to say, because I've been building this self-care course based on my little book, which will be the giveaway next week. I'm all over the self-care stuff at the moment, and the secondary trauma and compassion fatigue. So we'll go there next week. Quick look at the comments here. Let's have a look. Derek, thanks, man. Derek just saying benefited from the course on troubled kids. Get down to their level physically. Talk to the child. Yeah, absolutely. Address the behaviour. Question them in a kind of open way. Hi, Denise from Wirral Youth Justice. Good to see you. Catherine Wendy. Let's have a look. Cherise saying maybe the nervous systems of the adults have slowed during lockdown, and this inner pacing is a more nurturing experience that's missing in the day-to-day doing. I couldn't agree more, Cherise. I think the it changes in us during this period that need to be more patient, that need to have kids around more, that need to be more open to what they're expressing and so on, I think can really feed in. Nicholas saying the TRM applies. Absolutely. Stacey saying great advice for educators. Really easy to incorporate into small group interventions. Fab. I'm really glad. Jane just raising about a young lady who's she's got additional needs, going back to school in September into comprehensive school, leaving her friends and the nurturing environment. Absolutely. Oh my word, Jane, I feel that. That is that's tricky, and I think it's really important. And I think, again, as much as we can do to rehearse that, talk about it, draw it out, I really hope that the year 6 kids can get back in for a little while in school and sense that nurturing, even so they can just finish primary school in a way that's a little bit more normal. That would be really helpful, because of course they've missed out on those transitionary visits and things like that. We didn't talk about transitionary objects when we talked about that. Things that represent the home environment, the being held safety, something about you, your home, where they live, that they take out of the home with them. Could be a keyring on a handbag, a handkerchief in a pocket, a badge, you give them a pen, photograph of somebody they love. So they take something of the safe lockdown with them into the new place. Give them something to look after of yours, so that they can bring it back, and it acts as a kind of transition thing for them. There's loads of stuff we could say about that. Great question, Jane. I hope that's helpful. I know it's really brief, and I'm sure we'll come back to these things. Okay, so really quick, a couple of things to do. I want to take you to a quick website, then we're going to do the book giveaway. and then we'll go from there. Okay, so let me take you to, this is the ACAM website. So it's CAM as in CAMHS, Child and Adolescent Mental Health. So ACAM is the Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health. You can look at the acronym sheet if you need a reminder about what CAMHS means. So this is their website. There's all kinds of stuff on here. It's free to sign up. You just register as a member up in the top corner here. Couple of bits. There's this thing now. There's the journals if you want to read more researchy paper things. That's good. I occasionally dip into those if they've got interesting articles. I get the email alerts for those, which is always worth having. You can always just delete them, but occasionally there's a real gem. I want to draw your attention to the bridge, which is, I'll click that through. This is like their publication. It comes out monthly, and you can see they tend to have issues that focus on specific things sometimes. So that's about mental. This one's about the current one, mental health and deaf children. They're all about mental health, obviously, because it's the Association of Child and Adolescent Mental Health. This one is about CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. Maybe that's another one to add to our acronyms list. Friends and anxiety, that might be useful. This was a really good edition, the attachment edition. I got some good juice from that. There's an ADHD edition. So you'll find all that under the bridge. The other thing just is these topic guides here. If I click you through to see that, you'll see all sorts of stuff here. Addiction and substance use, ADHD, anxiety disorders, some good stuff. I had a quick look at that today. Reference our discussion about children's anxiety. And in TRM Academy, I've also been asked to look at putting on a webinar for helping some foster carers prepare kids for going back to school. So I was swatting up a little bit on there. This was a really good edition, the attachment edition. There's a autistic spectrum disorder edition. So you can see that. So that's the ACAM website. This was just an interesting little podcast, which was with is it this one? No, let me find this, because podcast, there was an interesting one on here that I thought would be useful for you guys. Here we go. Dr. John Golding, I don't know John, but it's on the coronavirus and child mental health, and it's a podcast, so it'll, I don't know, it might be 20 minutes, 40 minutes. It might be an interesting listen. He's working at Great Ormond Street Hospital, and he discusses mental health in the wake of coronavirus. So that is the that's the ACAM website. I hope that will be useful to you guys, because it's one of the ones I use. If there are things specifically that you find interesting online, please post it. Send it to me. You can get me on the email, just mail@johnnymatthew.com. Send it to me, or better still, pop it in the comments, either in YouTube or on the live comments, the comments that are up now. Stacey's saying, love the idea of transitionary objects. Currently planning for a new Year 7 intake. We're already receiving concern for parents and children. Oh yeah, that's a must. Transitionary objects are a delight. I will at some stage get my esteemed good mate and clinical psychologist Dr. Tricia Skuse on here to talk about that, because she's fantastic on that stuff, and there's so much you can do. It's very creative. So absolutely encourage kids. I would, even if secondaries can communicate with primaries, which I know you do, is to say to primary school, encourage your kids to take something from primary school home, something they can keep from primary school, a little something, I don't know, a ruler, a pen or whatever, and have it with them, as well as something from home. Maybe that's something that they could do. I think there's real benefit for kids in that. Hi Dave, David McKenna, first time viewer. Welcome, man. Great to have you on. Okay, we're nearly done. So what I would like to do now is a couple of things. Just to say, if you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, because that way you'll get notifications. I have my sound off then, so I don't know if you guys heard that. So I'll better stick it on again. So please subscribe if you're watching that on YouTube. Because that way you get notifications, and it'll be good to have you on. I intended to do this live stream through YouTube because generally it's more accessible for people, and I envisage at some point moving it across to YouTube, but we'll maybe take a vote on that near the time because they're available on there later anyway. But because YouTube doesn't let you stream until you've got 1,000 subscribers, I think, I'm sure we'll get there before long. But that's why I'm pushing the subscription thing, so that people subscribe, and then YouTube will let me do it on there because there's so much that I want to do but can't currently. So that's that. All right. So where is he? Harry the Hound. Now then, there's a rumour that Harry the Hound T-shirts are available. I was going to say I've ordered mine. I haven't actually ordered it. It's just that I saw Neil Davis, who wrote the book. I saw his kids on Facebook wearing them, and he said if anybody wants one, let me know. So I'm going to, Neil, if you're on, or if you listen to this, Kyle or Wendy, if you're on, listen, these T-shirts are going to sell, guys. So, I mean, I want one. I'm going to wear it next week if I get it in time. But let's get it out there. This is the issue of the moment, getting troubled kids back to school. So if Harry the Hound is helping, let's get it out there. So please let me know where to get, and I will put it on. But anyway, this is going out in the post to somebody today. So here's what I want you to do. In the comments, the live comments, if you're watching on YouTube, sorry, you missed the boat, but it's great to have you anyway. In the comments, I'd like you to put the word me, just M-E, if you want this book. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to play you the TRM Academy theme tune just because it's cool and I like it. While I'm playing that, if you jump in the comments, you can start now, put me in. I will flick through the comments, and then whoever I land on, if it says me in your comment, I'm going to send you this. And I think my luck is probably out as far as somebody else living down the road. And just to say, Andrea, if you win it, I'm not giving it to you because you had it last week. And even though random democratized Tom Bowler approach may land on you, I'm sorry. I think 2 weeks running to win is no good. So here we go. Here's the TRM gift. Put me in the comments and I'll flick through in a minute. There we go. So just to say, you can get all things TRM here, trmacademy.com/stuff. You can download the model there. You can buy one of these posh posters behind me if you want, not in a frame. But I actually had that to give to somebody else, but we're locked down. So there we are. So here we go. I'm going to flick through. This is really actually random, isn't it? Right, I'm going to start at the top of the comments. I'm going to flick my mouse wheel back and forth a couple of times, land on one, and then choose that person. Gaynor Rosier. Gaynor Rosier. Bless you, Gaynor. It looks like it looks like the I don't know, the gods of the internet are shining upon you, and you've won yourself a Harry the Hound book. So get in touch with me, Gaynor. Send me your postal address to mail@johnnymatthew.com. You'll see it on the ticker at the bottom of the screen there. So I can send you that as soon as possible. I'm nearly up to the hour, guys. I don't know whether these things are going on too long or what. Whether we should do them more often for shorter. I don't know. I don't know if this time of day works for you guys. It seems to work for people during lockdown. So anyway, let me know what you think. I'm really keen for your feedback. It's lovely to see stuff in the comments. So let me know. Email me. Get me through social media. And let me know how you feel it's going. Because if I can tweak this to suit you guys better, I really will. So well done, Gaynor. You got yourself a copy of Harry the Hound. T-shirts next week. Hopefully. So just to say, the live stream is on next week again, Wednesday, 27th of May. As I said earlier, I'm going to be giving away a copy of, I've ordered some more copies of this yesterday. This is my little book on self-care. So next week we're going to look a little bit at the impact of the work, how it affects us, you know, secondary trauma, somebody mentioned, vicarious traumatization, compassion fatigue. I'm not going to get technical about it. I just want to raise it as an issue. If you've got questions around that, there's some stuff I want to speak to that. If we're at a place of readiness, I may be able to give you some information about the self-care course, which is based on this book that we are working, and I hope to go to press the go button on that in the next, more than likely in the next couple of weeks rather than by next week. But we will at least be discussing that topic next week. Here we go. Can't see a thing without my specs. There we go. So once, last and finally, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. Thank you. Please put your stuff in comments. Most of all, remember this. You are your most important client. These kids, more than anything else, they need you. They need you to be on top form. So stay well. Look after yourselves. Please keep safe. Thank you for being on. I feel humbled by how many of you are and how enthusiastic you are. So look forward to seeing you Wednesday the 27th at noon. I'll catch you then. Cheers.